That means if you and I are driving SUVs or V8s or using a gas-powered lawnmower to cut our lawns, then you're damaging the climate, so I guess they could charge us with crimes against the climate. That's coming to a theater near you, by the way. So it's nuts, right? It's nuts what they're trying to do. And what you have really, what's going on here is obviously a totalitarian regime, an authoritarian regime trying to take over the West, and they're doing a real good job of doing that. And we realize now that the established order, like I'm going to talk about today, is corrupt. And I think this is like perfect timing when we're in the scriptures looking at this, because we see all around us that the system that we're in is leaning towards, well, I shouldn't say leaning, let me say this, on the fast track towards anti-civilization, anti-humanism. And we're going to take a look at what happens in the life of Judah and Tamar, which is kind of weird that Moses like stuck it in the middle, but right before he gets into the deep issues of what goes on with Joseph's life in Egypt, he inserts this chapter to tell us about Judah and what's going on in his family. And I think it's not a mistake. Judah and Joseph are being contrasted. As you know, contextually, Jacob has chosen basically Joseph, and so has God, to lead Israel. And Reuben has been disqualified. Judah's next in line, and Judah's not qualified right now. He's goofed up. He eventually will become the leader of Israel, and obviously through Judah's line will come the line of the Messiah. So this is a big deal, right? And right now, Judah cannot lead the way he's running things. And what you're going to see is the established order of Judah's family life. And you've got to remember, this is a tribe, right? This is what's being created, and this is the 12 tribes of Israel. And what you're seeing is a microcosm of an established order, and then Tamar, who will be the daughter-in-law, will come in and have to resist the established order in order to reestablish the line of the Messiah. It'll have to be some outsider that comes in that, challenges the established order. An outsider coming in to establish the established order. Sounds familiar to me. I don't know about you, but it sounds very familiar. So what ends up happening is we're going to take a look at this. I'm going to have to do it in two parts because it's very deep. There's a lot there. And as you guys know, there's an established order. And the established order now is doing things to those who hold to Judeo-Christian values or just common sense. It's reprimanding them. So like example, this is in Ireland. This is a teacher arrested at his home for refusing to use preferred pronouns at school. So they arrested him at his home. Now, you think, well, that's Ireland. It's never going to come here. Wait a second. They're already telling our teachers to use preferred pronouns on people and getting the teachers in trouble if they don't. Well, if you're a teacher, I wouldn't play the game of lunacy. I'm not going to go into some crazy world. If someone believes they're Superman, I'm not going to say, put on your cape and still go fly. I'm not doing that. That's insane. But yet, now sanity is criminal activity. And so this is the established order. Now we talk about the established order in the deep state. We have a deep state in the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, and all the intelligence agencies that we have are politically aligned to the left. And so this guy comes up against them, and any whistleblower just absolutely gets crushed by the FBI or whoever comes against them. And we have a problem. This is part of the deep state issue, right? Then you have Bill Gates, right? And this is another, systems types of guy. He's a technocrat. And what he is saying is, look, the boundary between crazy but free speech versus misleading people in a dangerous way or indicting them is a very tough boundary. You're going to want to be in an environment where people are truly identified. And what he is trying to say is, hey, look, we got these people out there like Brandon or whoever, or these Christians out here that are giving misleading and disinformation. And so we got to put a cap on that. We got to curtail that. And so the first thing we want to do is identify who's saying this. And that's called a digital identification is what he's trying to push. And then once they identify with a digital ID, then they can clamp down on those that go against the narrative or go against the system. That's the whole game here. And they think, well, that's 30 years from now. No. This is like a couple years away of them trying to do this. So again, it's part of the system that's corrupted, right? That's being used against us. And then they say, well, Brandon, you make these statements that we have 10 million people across our border, and they're all, good people, decent people that want to have a life. And yet, they gaslight us, telling us that. But what you start finding out, like this one, in less than 4-year period, almost 400 illegal aliens came in that are on terrorist watch lists. Okay, one terrorist is bad enough, but 400 have come in. And where are they at? We don't know, but to them, they turn a blind eye to it. Well, that's part of the system coming against us. It's intentional, right? And this is a problem, no doubt about that. Now, here's the other thing that gaslight us, the system does, saying that, look, man, Brandon, there's no criminals coming through the border. They're not at all. This is all made up. You know what just happened, though? You had Venezuelan gangs, and we already know that Venezuela and a lot of the Central American governments released their prisoners and told them to come to America. Okay, guess what? So now we have a Venezuelan gang that took over an apartment complex, and several gangs have taken over apartment complexes in Colorado. Here's a video of them, that this actually happened.
The city nonprofits have lined up to help the migrants that have come here, but nobody is helping the American citizens, the residents that are trapped in these apartment complexes.
So when they tell you, do not believe your lying eyes, we don't have Venezuelan gangs coming in. You just saw it. And so then you have, the governor of Colorado saying, that's just a figment of your guys' imagination. That didn't happen. There's no Venezuelan gangs taking over. Yes, they are. So you see what the establishment's doing? They're gaslighting you. And they're allowing this stuff to happen. The mayor there confirmed that several apartment complexes have recently become hotbeds of gang activity. There have been several buildings in the city that have fallen to Venezuelan gangs. That's the mayor. So I think I'm going to believe the mayor than the crazy governor saying that never happened. Okay, so what I'm showing you is that's the system. And it's not just the United States, it's around the whole world that's doing this to us. Okay, so then what are we supposed to do? Well, your clue is what Tamar does. She resists the system, okay? She doesn't revolt, she doesn't rebel, she resists the system. And there's ways to resist it in a biblical way that you don't fall prey to it. And so we're going to learn things from Tamar. But what we're going to see is, first of all, how does the system corrupt itself, okay? And you get a picture of what happens in Judah's family and his tribe very clearly. And here's the outset. Typically, anybody that starts a company, a business, whatever, a school, media, whatever, they start out with good intentions. And typically for a while, the founders of whatever, of a city, of a state, of a country, had good intentions. Like our founders had great intentions. And they formed a wonderful government. But what ends up happening over time is people get in there and they corrupt the system. And eventually you have now in America kind of a a burgeoning authoritarian, totalitarian state that's coming from our system because the corruption involved has done this. And take the schools, for example. When we started public schools in America, they started out to be a real good thing. They used the Bible as a primer for English, right? And now they kick the Bible out, they kick God out, and it's corrupted. So over time it corrupts. And companies do this, businesses do this. You know, have you seen businesses in town that are family owned, and they give it to their second generation kids, and the kids don't even want to run the business, and the kids just corrupt the business, and before you know it, there's no business. Because everyone's greedy and they want the money and stuff like that. You can look at local restaurants here in town that were family owned and then got corrupted by their own kids. It's all over the place. And what's happening here, I'm going to show you how it corrupts. How the system's natural gut. Churches do this. Churches start out good and then they corrupt and they don't end well. Came to pass at the time that Judah departed from his brothers and visited a certain Adullamite whose name was Hira. By the way, this Adullamite, which his name is Hira, is a Canaanite. Okay? They're not supposed to have any relationships with the Canaanites because the Canaanites are this rank, pagan, Luciferian, awful, awful people that are going to be eliminated eventually by Joshua. Okay? So they're not people you want to hang out with. But yet, what do we find this guy doing? Judah. The first thing you see is he departed from his brothers. Okay? So this is after they're sold Joseph into slavery. So the first thing Judah does is he pulls away from the family. That's significant because he's supposed to stay within the family, but he pulls away. So the first indication that someone's on the downside is they pull away of where the spiritual authority is, where the biblical values are being held. They pull away from that. That's the first thing Judah does. He departs from that. And where is he at? Well, obviously he's in the promised land, but he's now moving among the Canaanites. So guess what happens? He becomes friends with a Canaanite guy. This guy, Hira, will start as an acquaintance and then turn into a friend and then turn into an accomplice. Okay? That's the pattern goes down. And the principle that you cannot avoid in this situation is bad company corrupts good character. You start hanging out with bad people, you will become like them. If the people you hang out do drugs, you'll do drugs. If the people you hang out do carjackings, you'll do a carjacking at some point in time. Because you can't get past the principle. And Judah is hanging out with Canaanites, not even with his own family. And again, you have to look at it as his family is Yahweh worshipers. They go by what Yahweh says. Now he's with Canaanites who don't obey Yahweh. They have no morality. They have no compunction to follow God. They're just doing their own thing. And these are the people he's hanging out with. So he's friends with the world, so to speak. So that starts the declension. The individual that's in authority has missional drift. That's the problem with churches. That's the problem with businesses. That's the problem with our country. There's missional drift. You look at the political parties as an example. They have drifted, haven't they? Both parties have drifted left. What is considered a Republican used to be a liberal moderate in the middle. That's the Republican Party. They're not conservative anymore. They've moved over. And then the left is the liberalism is radically left now. It's shifted all the way because of corruption. Okay? So what happens is he removes himself from the Judeo-Christian ethic and then the corruption happens. That's exactly what's happened to our country. Then look what he does. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he married her and went into her. Thank you. Well, there is the problem right there now. We're not only just hanging out with Canaanites, I'm going to marry one. And I'm sure I can change her into being a Yahweh worshiper. I guarantee I can change him. Guarantee, or I can change her. What fool thinks they can change people before they get married? How many people have heard that? Mom, Dad, I'll change him. I know I can do it. I can change it. You're not going to change him. If the woman is a test pilot at the broom factory before they get married, they will continue to be a test pilot at the broom factory after they're married. I'm sorry. And the same thing about the guy. If he's a gorilla and they married, I'm going to change the gorilla into being a human, decent man. You're not going to change him. He's going to be worse than the gorilla. He'll be King Kong. Okay? That's the way it works. If you think you're going to change people, you're crazy. We need to tell all the 20-year-olds that are getting ready to get married, don't think about changing somebody. Okay? Okay. So anyway, he's going to marry a Canaanite. What? Jacob was already, this goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They already said, guys, we're not marrying outside the family. We have some families in Haran. We're going to stay within the family. We don't want to marry these Canaanites. Rebekah and Isaac begged Jacob to go find a wife from our own family. Do not get a Canaanite. Stay within. So what he does is practice exogamy. And what it means is he's going outside of the family in which God has ordained, and he's bringing in Canaanites into the line, and this line is the line of the Messiah. That's why God is guarding this family unit to not intermarry with Canaanites for all kinds of reasons. But one of the reasons is you keep intermarrying with the Canaanites, you will lose your Jewishness. You will cease to be Jewish. And so God is trying to prevent them from intermarrying. That's the first thing he does is intermarry with one of them. Okay, so he's jeopardizing the family and he's jeopardizing the line. Okay? This is what happens in people in authority when they start doing deals with the devil. They think they can make alliances with people that are Canaanites and they think it won't affect anything. But guaranteed it will. You need to have a discussion with people in your family that are getting ready to marry a Canaanite, and you know who I'm talking about. They marry that Canaanite, and all Hades will break loose in the family. Guaranteed, right? That's all that happens. Who the people marry, it'll save the family or it'll divide the family, who they marry. It really comes down to that. Big deal. So she conceived and bore a son. And of course, so they're going to start having kids. And these kids let me ask you this. You think the kids are going to be Yahweh worshipers or Canaanites? Yeah, they'll be Canaanites. And I'll show you why. So she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name Er, which means watcher. She conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. She conceived yet again and bore a son, and called his name Shelah. He was at Kezib when she bore him. So you read that and you're like, okay, what's the big deal? He had 3 kids. Yeah, wait a second. Read closer. First kid, Er. Who is he named by? He called his name, so it's Judah. Second kid, who names the kid? She does. And you continue, and she conceived again and bore a son, and it's the way the Hebrew is, it's the called is referring to the she. Who named the third kid? She did. Okay. You think, what's the big deal? Parents, whether the mom likes the name or the kid. No. Don't put today's way we name kids on the scripture. You have to understand a Hebraic background here. In the Hebraic background, or the Bible background, the people who name have the authority. So in the Garden of Eden, when God has Adam and Eve there, who names the animals? Is it Eve or Adam? It's Adam, because he has the authority. So Adam is naming the animals, okay? So he has the authority. That's the way it's supposed to be. But the problem is, as you saw in the garden, is things got turned up on their head, didn't it? And what ended up happening in the garden is Eve takes the role of the leader and Adam takes the role of the passive, submissive one to his wife. And what ends up happening is Eve is deceived, Adam's not, they both fall, and we plunge into the fall. Okay, so back to this story then, when you watch that Judah named the first kid, it is showing you a deterioration of his leadership, that where he's giving her the reins to guide the family spiritually and morally, to where she's naming the kid. Now, in this culture, you would never let the woman do that, just culturally speaking, because the man has the authority. But the fact that she's a Canaanite, and then she starts taking the leadership, shows you the house is completely upside down. So that starts the declension. And in any organization, a church, a government, a school, when you have unbiblical authority running things, everything will go chaos. Now, let me explain this a little bit further because the principle is deep. If you're going to resist the system, you got to make sure your own system at home is not malfunctioning. You cannot have the woman leading the home and the man sitting there like an idiot, passive, watching the ball game, drinking a beer, and not leading his family. It doesn't work. This is what Judah is doing. God is showing you why Judah can't lead at this point. He's letting a Canaanite woman lead his family. Let's go deeper. So with this being said, this is a problem not only in the Christian community, but in the culture at large. The Adam and Eve syndrome is everywhere. And it means that the man is passive, he doesn't want the leadership, and the woman will desire the leadership and then will take it if that vacuum is left. Every time, for whatever reason. And the woman will justify it and the man will justify it. The man will think he's in control, but he's not. And the woman will say to herself, I'm not in control, but she really is. I've had too many conversations with men and women saying, you're not in control and you are. How dare you tell me that? Well, I'm just telling you the truth. You're in control and he's not. If you guys are fooling yourself, you're crazy. And that's why your kids are upside down. That's why you can't control your kids. Because when the kids see that the home authority is upside down, the kids rebel too. It's just the way it works. Why do they rebel? Let me explain something real important. We have right now in our culture feminization running through the leadership of all institutions. Now, what do you mean by that? Because you have men running it. Yeah, but the men are feminized. What do you mean? Well, what do you mean by the men feminized? Are you saying that they're metrosexual? Well, maybe some of them, yeah. They dress weird, no doubt about it. They don't dress like a man. But let me explain what I mean by feminization. It's a spiritual issue. So the way God created humans, let's just take Adam and Eve. Eve is going to be the more nurturing of the one side of humanity. She has the emotion, she's the nurturer, she's the caregiver, she's the one that helps raise the children. She's the primary caregiver. Therefore, God blessed the woman with emotion and compassion. Okay? On the other side, God gave Adam, or men, not the emotional gifting that the woman has, but the gifting of discernment, and having that lack of compassion and lack of emotion keeps the man stabilized so that he can make rational, logical decisions based on what he is seeing. Okay, that's just how it works. That's how women and men are different. Okay, I think we acknowledge that. Okay, so what's supposed to happen is because the man is devoid of this emotional capacity, he has to be brought from his wife the compassionate that, hey, we're having a problem with this child, hey, we're having a problem over here, we're having this problem, and it's her compassion that she sees people hurting, and then she brings the problems to the male, and the male, because he lacks the compassion, is brought this by his wife, and then he can say, okay, we have a problem here, we have a problem here. This is how we're going to solve the problem with truth, boundaries, and limitations. And we're going to do this, okay? So, compassion is balanced by truth. Now, the problem is, if you get out of whack with compassion and have no truth, no boundaries, you get chaos. If you have someone over here that's truth-oriented without compassion, they will go past truth and they will become controllers and they will lord it over and then they will become authoritarian. So both have to be balanced, and that's what human nature is supposed to be. And that's why the nuclear family is so important, because the woman and the man balance each other out in how to deal with things, okay? So let's talk about the feminization of the culture. So what happens is they don't like masculinity, because masculinity is not just simply some dude that works out that's puffed up on steroids. That's not what they're talking about. The spiritual aspect is the man is the spiritual authority and therefore makes the rational, truthful decisions in society and in the culture and in the family. Amen. So they excluded him because they don't like truth. If you exclude truth, you exclude masculinity. That's how it works. So then what do you get? You get compassion. Okay? So the devil knows how to play the game. Take the feminine value of compassion and have no truth to undergird it, and what do you get? Open borders. Because why? Well, it's compassionate. We should be able to take in every human being on this, all 8 billion people, take them all in, and the compassionate mother nurturing nature says we can take care of all of them. But what does the masculine truth say? You can't take care of everybody. We're going to collapse the system if you do that. But see, that voice is silenced. That masculine voice of truth is silenced to compassion, compassion, compassion. But it's compassion without boundaries. And when you don't have boundaries on compassion, you get chaos. Because it's not balanced. So we have a feminization running through our politics. Now, it could be like this. I can take the feminization of compassion and put it on the homeless. Well, we need to be compassionate to the homeless. Okay, if you do that and you take away the masculinity of truth, then what are you going to get with the homeless? California. Okay, that's what you get. You get San Francisco. You get LA. You get a dystopian view. Why? Well, it's compassion. This is the feminine mindset says this. We're being compassionate to the homeless by allowing them to live on our streets, defecate on our streets, shoot up drugs, and we let them live their lives, right? Truth would come in and say, wait, time out. We can't just let people live on the streets because they're a danger to not only to themselves, but to others. They're hurting business. They're hurting the economy. They're hurting the community. And by the way, we have places for them to go, and they won't go. And the truth comes back and says, wait a second, half of them are mentally ill. So why in the world did we get rid of our mental institutions where we used to take care of people like this? It's not compassionate to let someone that's mentally ill, schizophrenic, off the chart on the streets. That's not compassion. Compassion is we need to take care of this individual. We need to put them in an institution that protects them physically, that feeds them, that bathes them, that gives them the proper medication, and keep these people alive. But the feminine mindset is compassion, but there's no rescue of them. Just let them live on the streets. Let them freeze to death when it's in January. Who cares if they die? It's that kind of mentality. That's not compassion. That's insanity. But again, you can apply this to most of what's going on in the culture. The worship of earth through this whole global warming is all a feminine mindset. It's the worship of Gaia, a female deity, the earth deity. And what it says is we need to be compassionate to planet Earth and the animals, and humans are a cancer. Humans don't fit. Humans are a virus. And so in order to be compassionate to the animals and the creation, we have to then nullify human beings. That is as raw pagan as you can get. That's you know what that comes from? Witchcraft. That comes from witchcraft, sorcery, that kind of stuff. Because truth would say, wait a second, you can't put an animal above a human being. You can't put the earth above a human being. What are you doing? But that's exactly what they're doing. Well, we need to be compassionate to Mother Earth. It's nonsense. Okay. So this is the system in which you're in. And it's Luciferian, and it's using a feminine quality to get things accomplished. And so when you buck the system, you get called racist, not compassion, mean-spirited, or whatever. Okay, let's take another situation. LGBT agenda, okay? So, Brandon, you're not being compassionate because you're not allowing people to have sex with anyone they want to, whenever they want to, wherever they want to, and however they want to. That's not compassionate. And she's not being compassionate. Okay, let's go to the truth. The United States is suffering from a demographic problem. Do you know that? We're not having babies anymore. It's like 1.6. You can't sustain your society if you're at 1.6. You have to have like 2 point something else, and I can't remember what the exact stats are. We're at 1.6. Do you know why? Because people are being discouraged to have babies. Okay? And part of the agenda for people not to have babies is to push the LGBT agenda because they can't have babies. Okay, I'm just telling you the truth. That's why it's being pushed, okay? It's not because they're so compassionate, they want them to have sex with whoever and whenever. It's a depopulation agenda. That's what's being pushed. The transgender is a depopulation agenda because these people can't have babies. You sterilize somebody, you give them a double mastectomy, you cut off body parts, and you sterilize them. They can't have babies. Duh, that's a depopulation program. That's what's happening, okay? And so it's a feminization of sexuality, whereas the masculinity would say, wait a second, God said that sex is between a man and a woman in the bounds of marriage. And there's a reason for that, because if you don't do that, you'll have chaos in your society. Oh, okay. So let me give you this principle and we'll move on. So in resisting the corruption of the established order, obviously, you have to understand that the corruption is coming from adopting false religions. That's what Judah is doing by marrying the Canaanite. The Canaanite is bringing her false religion into the family. And you'll see what it does affect. Now, let me ask you this. Let's go back to Adam and Eve, because these are fundamental things you have to understand about society. The compassion of Eve versus the truth-bearing of Adam. What is Adam's job in the garden? You are to tend the garden, which in another term it's a priestly term. It's a high priestly term, by the way, which means he's to guard the garden. He keeps the boundaries. He watches what happens and what enters into the garden temple. So this garden temple is where Adam and Eve are walking in the cool of the day with God. It's a temple, okay? A wallless temple, but it is nonetheless a garden temple. So Adam's job is to protect the temple from intruders. So you tell me how the serpent gets into the garden. Adam, number one, is not doing his job. We got that. But it's the compassion of Eve that allows the animal into the space, the sacred space. Because in Eve, because she's not balanced by Adam, and Adam is, again, the truth bearer, and he's sitting this one out, he's having a cold beer watching the game. He ain't watching what's happening. Her compassion, because it's not balanced with truth, says, I need to be compassionate to the serpent. And I need to let the serpent into the sacred space, because he just wants in the sacred space. Why would I exclude the serpent? Because he's a good guy, I think. So I need to be compassionate to the serpent. That is a fundamental thing you must understand. Compassion without boundaries allows serpents into places they don't belong. Think about this. How many serpents have entered education? Who let them in? It was the compassionate ones that let them in. Who let the serpent into politics? The compassionate ones. It's the mindset that we can open the doors to anyone and everyone and allow serpents to come into sacred space. Guess what happens in the church? The compassion allows the snakes to come into the church, and then you end up with a serpent behind the pulpit. Because there's no one fighting the truth. And that's a masculine trait, is to push back against the serpent. No, you don't come into the sacred space. Okay, so now let's go back to the family unit. If you have a woman in charge and you don't have the man in charge and he's sending this one out, the woman will inevitably bring the serpent into the home. That's how it works. So then the woman thinks, out of her compassion, that she can have a dialogue with a serpent. And what did the serpent do? He deceived her. How does he deceive her when Adam was not deceived? How did he deceive her? Because of her emotions. He plays on her emotions, and then guess what the serpent does? Did he sit there and say, hey, let's have some tea, and let's you and I be friends? What does he do? He introduces religion. You won't die. God's holding back on you. From the day of you eat it, your eyes will be open, you'll be like him. The only reason he's preventing this is because he doesn't want you like him. You can become your own gods. Religion. Oh, wait, do you see the pattern? The feminization of compassion says, come on in, serpent. We want to be compassionate. Come on in, jihadists. Come on in, Venezuelan gangs. Come on in. We'll be compassionate. And come on in, Iran. Because if we have tea with you, Iran, then I'm sure you'll treat Israel correct, right? And you won't want to kill the big Satan either. Come on in, serpent. But what happens when you bring the serpent in? What does he do? Gives you false religion. That's what's happened in our government. Look, what you're seeing develop in our institutions right now, and all across the board, is not a political agenda. Please do not think it's political. When we had Carl Teichert at our conference, Carl, he's like a Green Beret of Christians. Like Carl goes in behind enemy lines and he goes to like Burning Man and he goes to Bohemian Grove and he goes to these weird Paganistan. I interviewed him and he went to Paganistan. Like Comic-Con? Well, they have Paganicon or something like that or whatever. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. And he goes in there and he goes to the World Council of Churches and he goes to all these weirdo things that like you and I would never step foot in because it's so demonic. And you know what he learns? He said it at our conference. He said, look, all these things that these politicians are pushing, it's coming from religion. Not biblical religion, false religion. Because when I go to Bohemian Grove, and by the way, Bohemian Grove is pretty rank paganry. Every U.S. president has attended the Bohemian Grove except Donald Trump. Did you know that? Every president has went except Donald Trump. And dude, when you go there, there's this giant owl. They're worshiping idols. It's just off the chart crazy. And then he just got back from Burning Man. And Burning Man's another religious pagan festival, right? But what Carl says, and this is important for all of us to understand, that every issue you're seeing that you think is political, it's actually not. It's coming from paganism. The saving the planet junk, the globalism, the borderless countries, destroying our economy for the planet, depopulation, whatever the issue is, he says, Brandon, it's all coming from the religion of paganism. It's or satanic, it's Luciferian. And now it's coming out in your politics, but it's a reflection of the religion it's drawing from. And that's what I want you to understand. People say, Brandon, you're too political. I'm not being political. I'm addressing religious issues, but they're in the political arena. And you have to deal with that because it's a religion. It's like me telling you there's a wolf in sheep's clothing. So this is how it happens. So our country, it's kicked Christianity out and has adopted neo-paganism. Neo-spirituality. That's what these people are practicing. This is Kamala's religion. This is Biden's religion. They're nothing but pagans. Look at the Pope. If you haven't woken up to the Pope, today's your time to wake up, okay? We're going to give you no dose, and you're never going to go to sleep again. Look what this guy said. All religions are paths to reach God. Look at the bottom. There is only one God, and each of us has a language to arrive at God. Some are Sikh, Muslim, Hindu, Christians. They are all different ways to God. I'm sorry, but my Jesus said there's only one way. Amen. Right? I mean, so tell me this. Whose side is this dude on? Okay, he's on Satan's side. He's pumping a different religion. I wish the Catholics would wake up. If this doesn't wake you up, Catholic, I don't know what's going to wake you up, man. If someone rises from the dead, you might not even believe that. Nearly 1 in 10 Christian college and university has ties to Planned Parenthood. What? What? So this is the corruption of the institution, corruption of the Christian colleges. What are you doing tied into Planned Parenthood? These are murder factories of babies. What are you doing tied into these people? How about this guy? Episcopal priest claims Jesus has integrity issues. What? Yeah, and needed to grow beyond his original programming. So Jesus was programmed by the culture of his day, so he'd stop spewing garbage. That's blasphemy, by the way. What he's trying to say is he's taking the Syrophoenician situation where he called the woman a little puppy. And he wasn't insulting her, by the way. I'm not going to go into that, but he's not insulting her. And he's saying that Jesus is spewing out garbage when calling her a dog. And that's, Jesus is sinless. He's holy. Everything he says is correct and true and right. This guy's a blasphemer, right? But again, it's corrupted religion. It's a different religion. How about Stephen Curry? Okay? This guy claims to be a Christian, but endorses Kamala. Why? Because abortion is about decent people. Dude, help me out. Help me out how people who go to Planned Parenthood and murder babies by chopping off their body parts and sucking their brains out, how that's a decent person. How is that? Stephen Curry, what is this? This is not Christianity. This is paganism, because paganism does child sacrifices, and pagans think that child sacrifice is decent. How about Taylor Swift? Not saying she's a Christian, but she's crazy. We know that. But here's the thing about these people, okay? They're pushing paganism. But this Tim Waltz, she's pushing this guy. She goes, I was so impressed that, Kamala picked Tim Waltz, who has been standing up for LGBT rights, IVF, and a woman's right to own her own body for decades. So, Taylor, let's take that last part. Does a woman have 4 legs? Does a woman have 4 arms? And does a woman have 2 heads? Well, what do you mean? Because if she doesn't, then that's a different body inside of her, okay? So I know that's logic, but it doesn't work with this pagan mindset. But anyway, what's my point? My point is she's championing this Waltz guy. And you're like, well, you're being political. I'm not being political. This is not. The Republicans are just as goofy as they are. They had some priestess opening up the RNC, praying to some Hindu war god or whatever. They're just as bad. But anyway, what's my point with Waltz? This is not a politics issue. It's a good versus evil. This Tim Waltz guy is evil. He's a creep from the first order. Now, what do I mean by that? His decision was to take away children from their parents. If the parents resist them transitioning to being a boy or a girl, whatever, if they do that, the state of Minnesota will take that kid away from the parents, pay for the kid to mutilate their body, and basically disregard parental rights. Now, here's Megyn Kelly explaining this.
But she says the reason she's voting for Kamala Harris is because of Tim Walz's LGBTQ stance. Do you know what Tim Walz has done on the LGBTQ front? Well, here's what's going to happen. A little girl is going to find herself down a rabbit hole on Reddit. Reddit's going to tell her she's actually a boy. And she's going to get sucked into this gender cult. And she's going to say, Mom and Dad, I want puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, which will sterilize her. And they're going to say, no, you're a girl. And she's going to say, but I want top surgery, this benign thing, this double mastectomy where I'll have tubes coming out of me and I'll never breastfeed a child. I want that too. And they're going to say no. And she's going to go to a judge in Minnesota, and because of Tim Walz, the court will take custody of her, use the Medicaid funds in Minnesota to provide her all of those things, chop off her breasts, sterilize her with the puberty blockers and the cross-sex hormones. And when this girl inevitably comes to the conclusion that she didn't want any of this, that it only added to her problems, which were the divorce and the acne and the puberty and not any trans issue, who is she going to go to then? This is all because of Tim Walz. That's what Minnesota is doing right now to little girls and boys, taking custody away from the parents so that they can have these procedures without any loving parent there to help. And that's what Taylor Swift just endorsed for your children.
Yeah. I can't play the rest, but you can watch it and what she said. But again, what we're looking at is religion. Okay, so religion is being introduced, and it's being introduced by a lot of the immigrants that refuse to assimilate and integrate. So now we're having problems with voodoo all of a sudden, and we're having animals being sacrificed all of a sudden. And what? Yeah, because people are practicing the occult in our country. This didn't happen 10 years ago. Right? So, I said on Wednesday night, you're starting to see animal sacrifice rituals all over the place. This is in New York, right? Pigs and chickens and rats being tortured and mutilated and twisted up for religious rituals. What? This is America. Feds in New York City announced plans to crack down on animal sacrifices that don't exist, according to liberal media. So the liberal media says it's not happening, but yet the feds in New York saying we've got to crack down on this. We can't let this happen. Here's your little statues and worship areas that they're doing the animal sacrifice. This lady rescued 3 pigs. They're going to be animal sacrificed. Here's some of the pagan paraphernalia they're burning and sacrificing animals with. And what's this guy doing? Oh, so he's caught on camera. This is on the East Coast. He's caught a seagull. What is he going to do with it? Eat it? Sacrifice it? What is he doing?
Why do you have the bird? Why do you
I catch it when
Let me have the bird.
But, yeah.
I have the bird. I have the bird. I know how to hold the bird. Let go of the bird.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you want a bird, go to KFC, go to Popeyes. We don't take seagulls and eat them. What are we dealing with here, man? This is like so primitive. This is uncivilized. This is America. We don't eat seagulls in America. Paganism. It's paganism. Don't forget that. It's paganism. Okay, let's go back to the text. Then Judah took a wife for Ur, his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. Now, she's the hero of the story. She's going to save the line of the Messiah. And we're going to next week focus really a lot on her, but right now I want to focus on Judah. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord killed him. Excuse me? What did it say? The Lord killed him. So you got to be pretty bad for the Lord to just take you down with a lightning bolt, okay? You got to be pretty bad. Now, so again, remember I go back to, I marry a Canaanite, I think I can change her, but I can't. I'm passive, and my wife Canaanite takes over, and I produce little Canaanites that don't follow in Judah's footsteps, but follow in their mama's pagan religions. And guess what God does to him? Zaps him. You're done. Dude, you understand, this is hearkening back to like Noah's flood. The same Hebrew word is being used here that God just took him out because he's so evil. It's so wicked. I wonder how boy number 2 will come out as. Now, here's the thing. As a parent, it's one thing to produce a Cain. I get it. Cain's got his own free will, grew up in the same environment, and you run the risk by having children. You take a risk that one of them can turn out like Cain and totally rebel against you. I get that. But what happens when there's 2 kids that are rebelling against you? What happens when there's 3 kids rebelling against you? What happens when there's 4 kids rebelling against you from the same family? Then what do I got to say about myself? I better do some checking about my parenting if I keep cranking out degenerates. Okay. Boy number 2. And Judah said to Onan, go to your brother's wife and marry her and raise up an heir to your brother. And I think, again, this is the Levirate marriage, and it predates the Mosaic law. So let me explain something what's happening here. Otherwise, this will you'll miss it. In that period of time, according to the Code of Hammurabi, and basically the social order of the day, if you had a brother that died and didn't produce an heir, then the nearest relative, a kinsman redeemer, would need to redeem that and produce an heir through your wife that was a widower, because the wife needed an heir for the line of the name to keep going on and also for inheritance rights, okay? And by the way, this actually gets put into Mosaic law when Moses gets the law from God. and this was appropriate. So I don't want you to think about, well, that's crazy. I mean, having sex with your sister-in-law to produce a kid, that sounds like kind of non-kosher. No, it's very kosher for that time period. They didn't see sex the way you and I see it. It wasn't like a recreational thing for them. It was more of a transactional economic issue. Because if you didn't have an heir, as a woman, you died. You needed males to take care of you in that kind of harsh environment. So it's part of your Social Security. It's part of the way you transfer wealth and land and things of that nature. So really it's an economic thing. And so God even allowed this economic transaction to happen. So what he is supposed to do, Onan, is supposed to go in there, have sex with her, impregnate her. If she gets a male heir, then that's fine. Then he moves on to his own family. But at least she has a boy to take care of her in her old age and pass on the inheritance. So this is not out of line to ask him to do this. It was required. If you didn't, according to Mosaic law, you could refuse to do this, but you would have to go and stand in front of the elders according to Mosaic law, and you stood in front of them, the woman would take your sandal off and then spit in your face for not doing that, according to Levitical law. That's under God's law. That's how important this thing was. So I wonder what he's going to do. Remember, his mom's a Canaanite. Here's what he does. Someone answer the alarm. Someone's trying to call me right now. But Onan knew that the heir would not be his. And it came to pass when he went in to his brother's wife that he committed on the ground. We see the problem here? He does not want to share the inheritance. He's a greedy, grubbing Canaanite. And so what he has to realize in producing an heir for Tamar is he would have to split his inheritance now 3 ways instead of 2 ways. And he doesn't want to do that because he's greedy. He doesn't want to share anything. So guess what this guy does? I'm going to have sex with her, but I'm going to commit coitus interruptus and pull out every time so she doesn't get pregnant. And by the way, the Hebrew says he just didn't do it once. He routinely did this over and over and over again. Oh, so he likes the sexual gratification, but he doesn't want the responsibility of splitting up his inheritance. Thank you very much, you little Canaanite, you little heathen, pagan, idol worshiper. That's what they do. Okay. Second kid's goofy. So what happens? Lest he should give an heir to his brother, and this thing which he displeased the Lord, therefore he killed him also. So you must be pretty bad, strike 2, and 2 of your kids have been killed by God. Just saying. You're messing up as a parent at that point. Hey, let me ask you this. You think this parent, Judah, is going to say, boy, howdy, 2 kids are dead by the lightning bolt that came out of the sky. God killed them. You think he's doing any introspection? I wonder if I'm doing something wrong. You think he's doing any introspection? No. Because if he does any introspection, he then inevitably has to blame himself. And that's why people don't do any introspection on themselves, because it ends up winding up that you're the idiot who made the decision. You're the fool who married a Canaanite and decided that she's going to run the show in your home, and she's going to tell you what to do because you are like a little Peter Pan. You don't want to be the guy in charge. You want to be the boy who never grew up, and so you married your mama. But your mama is a Canaanite. And so you shouldn't be shocked, Judah, that both your boys have been killed by God. He ain't doing that. I can't go there. I'm not going to do any self-introspection because I'd have to blame myself. Not happening. Sorry. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow in your father's house till my son Shelah is grown. Well, that sounds great. It sounds like Judah's all on board, right? He's making a promise, a pledge. Ooh, don't miss that. He's making a pledge to her, saying, you know what? My youngest son, Shelah, is older. I promise you he will do the Levirate law. I'll give him to you, and everything is going to be fine. You stay under my roof and under my authority system. I'll take care of you, and when he's old enough, I'll let you marry him. So it's great, man. Then Moses lets it slip about what Judah's thinking. For he said, lest he also die like his brothers. Thank you. So Judah is a liar. He is not about to give his third son to Tamar, which the law requires, okay, that he do this, and he's not doing it, and he's promised that he would do it, but he's not going to make good on it because in his mind, he's thinking she's a black widow, okay, that she's killed 2 of my sons, and she's probably going to kill my third son. Wait a second, remember what I said? Judah, it is not Tamar that is the problem. It's you and your crazy wife. That's who's the problem. And so you think Tamar is the problem, but that's the problem. You're going to blame someone else when you don't do any introspection and blame yourself. You're going to have to blame someone else and make them the scapegoat, and he's made Tamar the scapegoat. And he has no intentions of fulfilling this promise, this pledge. There's a principle there. The principle is this. These people, like Judah, who are over the system, in authority, those who are corrupted, like Judah is being corrupted right now, will make promises to you and I, but they have no intention of keeping them. And by the way, they also know you're in a situation that you don't possess the power to keep them accountable to keeping that promise. Ask yourself, what type of power does poor Tamar have against Judah? None. She has no power whatsoever with his authority, and the authority has now went bad. Let me ask you this. What authority does anyone in this room have with the FBI? None. How about the CIA? None. How about the federal government? None. How about the Federal Reserve? None. You're in a powerless situation, just like Tamar. But she is going to resist the situation. And you're going to see that. But I don't want you to miss this. They are lying to you. And they know that you can't bring accountability to them. When Kamala tells you they're going to lock up the border, she's lying to you. And you have no way to keep her accountable unless you vote her out. Okay, that's it, okay? Zuckerberg cries crocodile tears before Jim Jordan and Congress. I won't do it again. I let interference happen with the FBI and you guys, and I was involved, and sorry. He's doing it again. He's still at it. He hasn't changed the algorithm. By the way, the algorithm is now affecting us at Rock Harbor because the algorithm is telling them that we're a fake account, that I'm not real, that Rock Harbor is not real, and because we're giving out articles that go against the narrative. So they're telling us our account is fake. They're doing it. They're never letting free speech happen. By the way, he cut the deal. And by the way, Brazil is doing the same thing. In Brazil, they've eliminated Rumble. They've eliminated X. Look, we use Rumble. Rumble is one of our major platforms that we get people, and people listen to us in Brazil, by the way. And by the way, we can't get them to them now because they cut Rumble off in Brazil. That's totalitarianism. Oh, we're for free speech. No, you're not. You're a liar. You're not for free speech because you're censoring us. And we as a church are currently being censored right now. Right now. Oh, Secret Service has pledged to protect anybody they guard with their lives. And yet, leaks are coming out, especially from the local police, said that at Butler Rally, they never directed local police to guard the roof. And by the way, the police also came out and said, yeah, we were never in radio communication with the Secret Service. And then I heard the call from one police that saw the guy on the roof, and he was going crazy and flipping out. Hey, there's a guy on the roof, there's a guy on the roof. And he's shouting that on the radio, but guess what? Secret Service was on this different frequency. I wonder why. Why would the Secret Service be on the wrong frequency than the police at the event? You tell me. Trying to kill him. That's right. Okay. Oh, I skipped it. There's some Talonic justice going on here. What I mean is that what you give out, you get back. So check this out. Jacob wants to protect Joseph, the youngest, at that time. And he favors Joseph. And unfortunately, that favoritism causes everyone to hate Joseph. So in effort to protect him, it causes people to hurt him. And so then the same thing happens. Now Judah wants to protect his youngest son, but by doing that, his youngest son is going to be hurt, and he's going to be hurt. It's Talonic justice. It's like whatever you give back is coming back to you. So Judah, you did this to your dad. You sold off his brother, and he was trying to protect him, and you sold him off. Well, the same thing is going to happen to you. That's what you're threatened by, aren't you? So what you're seeing with Judah is he's being corrected by the Lord by Talonic justice. By what you give out, you get back. It's a teaching mechanism. I'm going to show you next week a lot more of it. But anyway, what's the principle? Judah represents how biblically ignorant people are when they make decisions. When they don't consult the Bible, they're obviously, and Judah didn't have the Bible, but he had the Word of God, and he had his family to guide him with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to guide him to making correct decisions. But he's not. He's being directed by his wife, a Canaanite. And you can see that when you're not directed by biblical wisdom, biblical discernment, biblical truth, you're going to make bad decisions that affect not only you and your family, but for generation after generation after generation. See, what God's trying to prevent is that from happening, from you like lighting off a bomb and everyone getting the shrapnel from that. But Judah's lighting off a bomb. So again, here's the bomb. So we got people in authority making decisions that's affecting all of us. So for instance, you have another immigration problem where they dumped 20,000 Haitian immigrants into a small town about the size of Delano, about 60,000 people, and they dumped 20,000 Haitian migrants into this place, and it's all chaotic. It's all going crazy, right? So we have reports that they're eating the animals and stealing pets and all kinds of weird rumors popping up all over the place. Springfield leaders dodge and weed questions about Haitians overcrowding and wildlife because there's reports they're going to the lakes and taking the geese and taking the ducks and eating them, or going after cats and eating them. Now again, these are circulating because people are complaining, but the leftist media is saying, "Oh, it's not happening. It's not happening." But yet, report after report says the Haitians out of control. They can't drive for some reason. In addition to straining available resources, locals have complained of migrants causing car crashes, stealing property, including livestock, squatting in homes, and killing wildlife for food. This is Ohio Attorney General. There's this lady talking about the system, and how the system is hurting her and the people around her in Springfield, Ohio, about these Haitians.
And I'm done with what I'm seeing. It is so unsafe in my neighborhood anymore. I have the homeless that were trying to camp out, and I have made concessions with them, and I try to help them the best I can to keep them from trying to squat on my property. But it is so unsafe. I have men that cannot speak English in my front yard screaming at me, throwing mattresses in my front yard, throwing trash in my front yard, and I can't. Look at me, I weigh 95 pounds. I couldn't defend myself if I had to. My husband is elderly, and last night, after living in this home for 45 years, he said, "Noelle, guess what? It's time to pack up and move." He said, "We can't do this anymore." He said, "It's killing both of us mentally." I don't understand what you expect of us as citizens. I mean, I understand they're here under temporary protected status, and you're protecting them, and I understand that our city services are overwhelmed and understaffed. But who's protecting us? If we're protecting them, who's protecting me? I want out of this town. I am sorry. Please give me a reason to stay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's another guy.
I think it's like kind of odd that like a guy like me has to come out from doing what I do on a daily basis to have fun, because I see what's going on in these streets, and I see you guys just sitting up there in them comfy chairs and suits, and I'm getting out here every day and I'm broadcasting this, and you guys are just sitting up there in suits or something. Like, I really challenge you guys to get out here and do something. These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They're running into, they flipping cars in the middle of the street. And I don't know how, like, y'all can be comfortable with this. Like, I don't know, like, who's getting paid from it. I honestly feel like someone's getting paid from it in the background. You got a bunch of people on a bus getting dropped off at a gas station to come down here. I know a single mom that FaceTimed me this morning at the welfare office that really need something. And it's nothing but immigrants over there. And I don't even want to, like, seem like I'm coming down on the immigrants, because it's the people that's bringing them down here. Because wherever they're at, that's what they're used to, bro. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them. Like, y'all get the Highway State Patrol down here every week, and then y'all get like a task force for the Highway State Patrol, and they look for guns and they look for dope and this and that and the fourth. That same people that y'all got riding up and down Limestone doing U-turns, pulling people over for blinkers and pulling people over for, like, going left to center and, like, a couple miles over. Like, y'all can take them same people, the Highway State Patrol, and you can take them in every single one of their silver Chargers and Dodge Durangos, and y'all can take them to Sunset, and y'all can park them right over there, and y'all can teach people how to drive, since the Highway State Patrol knows so much about traffic laws and know what to do in traffic. They need to, y'all pay them, they can go over there and teach these Haitians how to drive, because it's getting bro, I'm getting thousands of views on these, and it's going to get bigger, and it's only going to get worse. And y'all sitting up there in these chairs, all y'all need to get out here and do something. Y'all making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Y'all need to put on a t-shirt and some Crocs, and then y'all need to come out here in these streets, and y'all need to go out here and I'm out here before the police is. Like, y'all need to do something, bro. Y'all really got to stand on business. Y'all getting paid all this money just to wear a suit and sit in a chair. I think it's crazy, bro. We got to do something, bro. It's kids out here getting hurt. Like, only reason I even went on here and said something about it is because somebody told me they walking from the school and a Haitian almost ran into them. And who is getting paid? Like, how much money is y'all really getting paid, like, to bring them over here? Like, I know it's deeper than them. I know that's where they come from, and that's what they do. That's their country. I don't know what they got going on over there, but they can't do that over here. And if y'all just getting paid from it and then y'all ain't doing nothing about it, I think that's super weird, bro. Y'all got to stand on business. Y'all got to really, like, step up. Like, it's lame, bro. Like, for real.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I couldn't have said it better than myself, man. God bless them. He says they're going into the thing, you're killing the ducks, man. What in the world? So there's a petition to get rid of this whole commission because of the Haitian influx. But there's memes now that are popping up. Donald Trump to the rescue, saving the cats and ducks from being eaten in Ohio. Other memes, Kamala hates me. Obviously, Trump helicoptering in to save the kittens and the ducks from being eaten. This is another one I thought was pretty good. Part geese for Trump. Cats are getting ready because they don't want to be eaten either. And then this is people captured a video in Ohio. Cats figured out they were looking for them for food. So the cats freaked out. So this is what the video shows. Cats in Ohio right now. You gotta laugh at that because I number one, I can't believe this is happening in our country. I can't believe it. So you got to have some laughter because it's crazy, right? It's just crazy. But, okay, what's the point? Because we're going to have to stop this, and we'll continue with Tamar and how she deals with it. But this is about resisting the system. And you're watching Judah's run the family like out of control, and Tamar's being in a powerless position over her authority. But what you're going to see is Tamar will resist it, and she will resist it so much it changes the whole course of everything. And we're going to see that next week. Okay, what's the takeaway then? Well, the takeaway then is if you're going to resist the system, then you better fix what's going on at home. Because as you can see, Judah's home life was a complete disaster, right? He wasn't in charge. His wife was in charge. She's running things. She's producing, cranking out Canaanite kids, and they're being killed by God left and right because they're so devilish. And what we're starting to realize, okay, before I take Leviathan on, before I take the school district on, before I take Bill Gates on or the AI system, I better have my house in order. Because if I don't have my house in order, I can't fight the bigger Leviathan out there if I have a Leviathan at home. And so that's kind of the takeaway. We'll pick up on this next week as we watch Tamar resist against the system. Let's pray. Father, thank you, Lord, for what we can learn from this situation that we see in Genesis 38. We all are part of this crazy system that we're seeing pushed on us, and we feel powerless many times, Lord, but you have given us a way to deal with it. Help us to start at home, figuring out our home life, our authority structure, so we can fight a good fight. And Father, if there's anyone here who hasn't come to faith, they would do so today, realizing the God-man, Jesus, died on a cross for their sins, was buried and rose on the third day to give everlasting life to anyone who will believe. We pray now in Jesus' name, amen. God bless you guys. We'll see you.